Welcome inside another exciting edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and we had a wonderful weekend of football this past weekend, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. For today on the Stingray Show, we're going to be joined by none other than Cecil Hurt from the Tuscaloosa News to talk all things Alabama and the Crimson Tide. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as Heath and myself get you ready for the big football weekend this weekend and review what happened last weekend, only on the Stingray Show.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you!
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever!
So without further ado, here is the biggest Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes.
Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jennings, he's got it. Jennings, he's got it. Touchdown, Tennessee. They shocked the Dogs in Sanford Stadium. Are you kidding me? My God almighty. What an epic way for the Tennessee-Georgia rivalry to end this game. What a play. Wow. Welcome inside another edition of the Stingray Show, everybody. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and I hope you guys got a lot of good sales on Black Friday, and then, of course, yesterday on Cyber Monday. But we have a big show planned for you guys, so without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my co-host, Heath. Heath, how's it going, my friend? Did you have a good Thanksgiving weekend?
Wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, Steven. How about yourself, brother?
I did, man. I was able to watch a lot of good college football out there, and I actually, caught up on some of my TV shows that I hadn't been able to catch up on because of the Stingray Show. So all in all, it was a really good weekend.
Good.
So what did you like the most about this weekend? Now, unfortunately, your Mississippi State Bulldog fell in the Egg Bowl to the Fighting Lane Kiffins.
Yeah, let's give props to Ole Miss. That, I heard multiple Ole Miss. I got a lot of Ole Miss family and friends. Even my own sister went to Ole Miss.
Wow.
So I've got a lot of Ole Miss relatives, neighbors, friends. I live in North Mississippi, so I see more Ole Miss fans than State fans. I can't tell you how many people. I bet you 24 people have come up to me to tell me that was the best they have seen the Ole Miss defense this entire season. So I was shocked to hear that. But good for Ole Miss. Ole Miss made more plays in the Egg Bowl, and it was a game well deserved. So hats off to Lane Kiffin in his first Egg Bowl. Hats off to Matt Corral. Matt Corral has been kind of the punching bag for Mississippi State and Mississippi State fans past couple of years. He's lost multiple Egg Bowls. He lost his helmet in a fight in one of them. So with that being said, Matt Corral had an excellent game. And there was even there was no urination simulation this time around. So it was kind of a weird game, but it was a peaceful Egg Bowl. And that's very odd to say. It was an odd game, to say the least. It was very peaceful. Neither team really pulled away from each other. It was just kind of I think everybody was waiting for the other shoe to drop for both teams all day, and it never dropped for either one. So, but again, props to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin on the believe the 93rd edition of the Battle Egg and the 115th game between the two schools.
Man, that's awesome. All right, well, let's go on ahead and bring in our first guest on the Stingray Show. He is well known. He is an Alabama fan. He has been around for a long time. Anybody who reads the Tuscaloosa News, he has columns there. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, here is the Alabama legend, Cecil Hurt. Cecil, how are you doing today?
Guys, I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Happy to do it, always.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I'm trying to remember. I missed having the Egg Bowl to watch. I know that much.
Right.
I was looking for that on Thanksgiving night. No, I was mainly at home.
Yes.
And so it was a beautiful day, and wasn't the best football in the world on television, but it's still a day to reflect, and even in 2020 there are a lot of things to be thankful for. So from that standpoint, yeah, it was a good day.
Well, what can you tell us right now about the status of Nick Saban? How is he doing after he was tested positive last week for COVID?
Yeah, he's still in quarantine, still at home. Should be out of that. It'll depend. He'll be tested again tomorrow. If everything goes well with the testing, he should be out by Friday at the latest, and able to travel with the team to Baton Rouge and coach on the sidelines against LSU. So the quarantine's 10 days, and so he would be right at that mark on Thursday. And again, he'll have to be continued testing for symptoms, but he anticipates being able to coach in person, not just watching on television.
Yes.
So what do you know about as far as his symptoms go? I mean, is Coach okay? I mean, has he had a rough case of it, or has it just been mild all the way through?
He says it's been mild. That he had a little bit of a runny nose, but says that he's really felt fine, hadn't run a fever, and so he's just sort of waiting out the quarantine.
I got you.
Pretty amazing when you're 69 years old, but he's in good shape. So been able to handle it.
As far as the team, how are the team's numbers and depth dealing with the COVID craziness? I know a lot of people have been hush-hush about it, but as far as you know, how are things affecting the team? Yeah,
against Auburn, they've been pretty adamant about their lockdown, and so they've been good. They really didn't have anybody that was out against Auburn, either from positive testing or contact tracing. So if that maintains this week, we hadn't heard the result. They get tested every day. But Coach Saban will be on the SEC teleconference tomorrow. I'm sure he'll update that as well. But it wasn't an issue against Auburn. Shouldn't be an issue against LSU. Now, once you're on the road, once you're away from home, and Alabama's got 2 road games to close the season if the schedule holds the way that it is, in Baton Rouge and then in Fayetteville, where they've had and just like Tuscaloosa, I'm not singling anybody out, where they've had high rates that they really need to be careful with. Their high rates in Tuscaloosa, but they're really able to keep the players in what's essentially a bubble. But when you go on the road, that's a little bit different. So we'll see how they come out of those. But as of Saturday, they were fine, and there hadn't been any reports that have been any different. But we'll see what Coach Saban has to say tomorrow.
Well, what were your thoughts on the Iron Bowl this past Saturday?
Well, I thought that Alabama was in control. I was a little bit surprised in some ways that Auburn was, I hate to say, overly conservative, but that they didn't take a lot of chances offensively, and it's just hard to keep up with Alabama's offense when they're putting up 21, 28, 35 and all of a sudden you're just too far behind to catch up.
Right.
It's just hard. And Alabama has the kind of weapons that can hit quickly. Here's a quirky statistic for you. Both teams in that game had 20 first downs.
Wow.
But Alabama had so many more explosive plays,
Right.
deep balls, long route. Najee Harris had a 40-yard run. Devontae had a 60-yard touchdown. So you only get one first down for those things, but you also get 7 points.
Yes.
Whereas, Auburn had one long touchdown drive late in the game. Nice drive for them, 95-yard drive. But also you're in the fourth quarter, you're down 42-6.
Yeah.
And you're taking 6 minutes off the clock. Well, you can't catch up and get back into the game
Right.
that way. So it's just two different styles right now. And Alabama just puts so much pressure on you, just like LSU did last year, by being able to score so many points so quickly that it changes what you can do offensively, or if you don't change, then you just can't keep up.
Yes.
Cecil, I wanted to ask you real quick.
Sure.
As far as offenses, how would you rate this offense compared to the past offenses of the great Alabama teams? Where would you put them?
They're different. The 1973 offense, when they had gone to the wishbone and people hadn't really caught up with that in 1973, that was a great offense. It wasn't this kind of offense, but they were rushing for 500 yards a game. You can go back to the 30s, to the Roswell, Dixie Howell, and Don Hudson teams, and they were ahead of the curve offensively. So it's hard to compare.
Right.
Now, if you're comparing to earlier in Nick Saban's career, they're much more diverse on offense than they were in 2009, 2011. They won championships by having a solid, even right up through Derrick Henry. They had a solid running game, didn't throw it too much. Could throw it. Had Julio Jones, had Amari Cooper, but were a run first and built to stop the run, built to be really physical defensively. But Nick Saban, and this is what makes great coaches, saw the direction that the sport was going, and that he was going to have to make a change, that they were getting into games that they were having to win 49-42. They were shooting it out with Texas A&M in games like that. And so he changed the approach, brought in Lane Kiffin, changed the approach offensively, changed the way that they were recruiting, both offensively and defensively, and has managed to stay ahead of the curve. So you look at last year's offense, and when Tua was healthy, they had a high first-round draft choice quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They had 2 first-round wide receivers, plus the 2 wide receivers that they have now, or did have until Waddle got hurt, who are 2 more first-round wide receivers. So I don't know that it's really more explosive. I think the offensive line, even with Jedrick Wills, who's also a first-rounder and playing for Cleveland, moving on, I think they're better on the offensive line. If Jaleel Billingsley continues to develop into a weapon at tight end, that's just one more thing that defensive coordinators have to worry about. So it's, in terms of diversity, it may well be the best offense. It's just hard to gauge against what last year's team could do if Tua had stayed healthy and not just the hip injury, but he wasn't even 100% against LSU. They could score 60 points on anybody last year.
I want to follow that up with one quick thing that you mentioned. You talked about how Nick Saban changed things, changed his offense, and saw that coming. Joe Paterno saw things changing, and he changed everything with Penn State way back when. But he went through 3 or 4 losing seasons, and they were patient with him there in Happy Valley. Nick Saban changes things, and it looked like he didn't miss a beat. He just kept kind of going there. Have you ever seen a coach at any level or in any sport make such a huge transformation and still stay so successful through the process?
Yeah, not even Coach Bryant, 68, 69, 70. And then they went to the wishbone in 71. But, they were 6-5 teams in 69 and 70. So it's been pretty remarkable. there have been teams. Oklahoma is the one that comes to mind that is evolved somewhat offensively. They've always been pretty wide open, but Lincoln Day's been able to continue with that. So Oklahoma's maintained offense through different, somewhat different styles of play. But no, it's been remarkable what they've been able to do.
Yes.
Well, let's turn our attention to another sport that's going on right now. Alabama obviously was blown out last night by Stanford. What can we expect from the Crimson Tide under second-year head coach Nate Oates this year?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. First, let me correct myself. I conflated Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley, so apologies to Oklahoma fans.
Right.
But it was not a good effort last night. So what to expect is it's difficult to say. They've still got a talented team,
Yes.
and you don't judge an entire season on one game, but you do worry, in a nationally televised game, a fairly high-profile game. And again, winning and losing, Stanford's a good team. That game was a toss-up. But there's a difference in a toss-up and you lose in the last minute or somebody hits a three-pointer. But it was a good competitive game and just not really being competitive for the last 30 minutes of the game. Alabama was tied 25-25. Stanford closes the first half on a 16-4 run, and Alabama's never really close in the second half. Gets out-rebounded, gets out-hustled, gets out-worked. So it'll be interesting. They've got 2 more games in Asheville. It'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. It's not like they suddenly don't have players, but they certainly have to get over the preseason hype, forget about all that, and get back to work.
Right.
As far as basketball season this year, what are some expectations? Will we see growth out of the Crimson Tide this season, or hope to see it at least?
You would think so. They have veteran guys. They progressed last year over the course of the season until they got to the end, and I think the injuries caught up with them. They just have to fix – first of all, they have to give a better effort and look at what the situation was with Stanford and fix it. But – I think they'll be competitive in the SEC. I don't know that they'll win out. I voted for Tennessee, I think, in the SEC. I mean, I know I voted for Tennessee in the SEC media poll before the season. Kentucky will be right there. Florida, even though Kentucky lost to Richmond, they'll be right there. Florida will be right there. So Alabama's got more than enough talent to be competitive and to play better than they did against Stanford. And I think they will be competitive.
Well, getting back to college football, with the way that Gus Malzahn and Auburn looked in the game Saturday, how much longer do you think that the War Eagles will hold on to Gus Malzahn? I mean, do you think that was pretty much the way that they performed, one of the nails in the coffin for Gus Malzahn?
I'd be surprised if they, in 2020, if they made a change. There's certainly some sentiment for that among Auburn fans, and I don't begin to speak for Auburn fans. But it would be an expensive buyout. You'd have to know, you'd have to have targeted a Hugh Freeze or whoever you want to target, and know that you could get them and not get involved in a bidding war with another school. But we'll see. They need to not get, if everything goes and they play Texas A&M Saturday, who knows, they could bounce back and win. But I think at some point, I don't know about this year, but I know he'll go into next season on the proverbial hot seat. Because Auburn fans don't want to go 5-5 in a year like this. They don't want to go in a regularly. They don't want to go 7-4 and 4-4 in the league, or 8-4 and 4-4 in the league. So I think that's become a little bit of a pattern, and I think that the fact that he's managed to win against Alabama 3 times at Jordan-Hare has probably kept him in place. But sooner or later, they're against what I guess they would regard as their three big rivals, Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. That Gus is 0-12 on the road. On the road, but you got to win some of those games,
Yeah.
So I would think this year would probably be a mulligan for Gus in some ways, and then see what happens next year. But again, I don't speak for Auburn, so I don't know.
Cecil, I got two final questions for you.
Sure.
We've got all these great staff members under Nick Saban, and they're absolutely amazing. And some have gone on to do other things and great things, and head coaches elsewhere here in college football. But who are the next few coaches that will be leaving this staff to be head coaches here in the next season?
Well, I think Steve Sarkisian certainly enhanced his profile. I think,
especially Saturday.
As with Lane Kiffin, I think it's been a really good hiatus for him away from the head coaching ranks. So I think that Steve will be considered. He was considered last year. He was right in the mix at Colorado. But I think he'll be one that will eventually be a head coach somewhere again. Charles Huff, I think the defensive line coach. Charles Huff is somebody that's going to attract some attention. But really, they all, who knows if Kyle Flood, the offensive line coach, wants to get back into head coaching. He probably needs to distance himself a little bit further from the situation he had at Rutgers. But that's somebody that certainly has head coaching experience. And so I think any of those names would be possibilities.
My last question is this one. I've asked Tony Barnhart, Dan Wolken, Mark Schlabach, many others, just about everyone that comes on the show. I always ask them this, but I really want to get your answer because I got a feeling you know more than all of them. How much longer is Nick Saban going to be doing this?
I can't put a number on it. I don't think he wants to be doing anything else. I think when you start to see some slippage, he doesn't want to hang around and go 8-4, 7-5.
Right.
But if you keep having the number one recruiting class, and they'll be top 3 regardless, we'll see. We'll know a little bit more about that next week, or 2 weeks, when National Signing Day early period rolls around. But they'll be in the top 3, and so as long as he can be competitive at a championship level, him coaching until he's 75 wouldn't surprise me at all.
Wow.
All right. Well, my final question is getting back to this football team.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody that you've seen outside of Alabama that can actually, points for points, actually keep up with and knock off Alabama moving forward?
I think it's been hard to judge Clemson. It was hard to judge partly because Trevor Lawrence didn't play against Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I think they missed Justin Ross. I think they missed some of their receivers, but you do have Trevor Lawrence. You do have Travis Etienne. So they can score. They've got talent. And so they would certainly be in the mix. I haven't seen enough. Ohio State just hadn't played enough.
Right.
They did not overwhelm me in their game against Indiana. But it's certainly a talented roster. They certainly, I wouldn't say they couldn't be competitive because they could. So those two, I think Notre Dame is better than or would be closer than the 2012 team that Alabama blew out in Miami. I think Book's a good quarterback. Whether they could stay with Alabama scoring wise, I'm not sure. So and then Florida, I think, is going to be a great SEC championship game. I think Florida's really of all of them the one that may or may not be in the playoffs. The game may not be in the playoffs. It may be settled in Atlanta. Particularly if Alabama wins, it'll be hard for Florida to get in with 2 losses.
Right.
But that might be the toughest one of all.
Well, Cecil, We want to really thank you for your time and taking time out of your busy day to join us.
You can tell y'all caught me right in the middle of working out, so
Right.
that's fine.
Is there anything before we let you go that you would like to give a shout out to or tell people how they can find you?
They can find us at tidesports.com, or most people just go to my Twitter account, which is at Cecil Hurt. And no, just tell everybody to be safe and make it through the rest of the year. And thank y'all for having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much. And and before we let you go, I'm going to say this: Roll Tide.
Okay.
Thanks,
Steve. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right. Well, that was a really good interview, and we really want to thank him once again for coming on.
Yeah, Cecil's a legend. He's been a legend, and I'm sure everyone has read his stuff countless of times. I mean,
yes,
he is the insider for Alabama, and so if Cecil says it, it happened.
Right. And so I would like to get him back on a couple of times when basketball season kicks in too.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, I mean, there's not much of a following for basketball around here, but there's just a little bit.
Hey, me and you are going to change that, Stephen.
Yes, I hope so. All right, man. Well, without further ado, you were so good at getting our next guest. I'm going to pull you up full screen so that you can introduce our next guest to our viewers.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is a friend of mine, and hopefully he'll be a great friend of the show. If you've met him, you know him. He's well respected and beloved. Anyone that's worked in media talks very highly of him. There's even some writers around the state that even speak very highly of him. Matter of fact, I don't know anyone that doesn't speak highly of our next guest, the one and only Will Kolemeyer. Will, how are you, brother?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. I appreciate the kind words and appreciate the opportunity to join you and Stephen.
Yes, and for the folks at home, I know they have heard your voice countless times. You do a lot of SEC Network, SEC Plus, and also some ESPN games. And you'll also be calling the Mississippi High School State Championships here this weekend, correct?
Yeah, that's right, Heath. Hard to believe this is 10 straight years that I've been able to call the state high school football and basketball, baseball championships, statewide TV, and then, of course, on the NFHS network. So, really thankful. I'll be working with a couple of terrific guys in the booth. Matt Wyatt, who you know very well, does radio analyst for Mississippi State football. And I've got him on Friday night for the Oxford Oak Grove 6A showdown. And then on Saturday night, former Southern Miss quarterback Lee Roberts, who's part of the USM radio network. He does color alongside John Cox. And so he'll be in the booth with me Saturday night for the West Point West Jones game down in Jackson.
Hey, Will, quick fun question. Why do we always have to get quarterbacks? If you could pick another position, who would you take?
Hey, I just want them. I just try to set the table and let them come to dinner because I tell you what, I've really been blessed with working with some terrific folks through the years, and Matt and Lee are right there at the top. I don't know what it is about quarterbacks. We need to try to, and I've worked with a couple other quarterbacks too in the booth. We need to kind of spread the wealth around maybe a little bit.
Yeah. You wouldn't be scared to bring a D lineman.
I lost you just for a moment, Heath. I'm sorry. You were saying that you were talking about quarterbacks.
Talking about defensive linemen.
Yeah. You wouldn't be scared to bring a defensive lineman, would you?
I'm telling you what, those offensive linemen, they've got some high GPAs. They could probably break down a few things. That's for sure. Break down things on the broadcast. I'm not talking about breaking down physically things.
Yes.
That would be a good option going forward.
Hey, Will, another fun question. Of all the games you've called over the years, what's a crazy moment that's happened on air that you had no clue how to handle and you just kind of coasted through and worked through it?
That's hard because I've done a little over 1,700 games. Let me, think about something unusual. Well, I'll tell you what. I've called, I think, 11 different sports. The only time I ever called a cross country, it was the state cross country championships down in Clinton, Mississippi. And right before we went on the air, we lost the monitor. The monitor went dead. And of course, you're at a cross country meet.
Right.
You've got cameras for part of it, and then other parts they're in woods. They're running, and you don't have. It's not the NBC network when it comes to having 15 different cameras along the course. So I had no monitor, so I had to tell my producer in my ear. I said, "You got to give me some." Like numbers, like the old day, Ronald Reagan, maybe before, like the ticker or something. Right. You got to tell me a name or at least a number that's coming up, and so I can at least pretend like I'm trying to call who's coming up up the hill, and that was quite unique. But fortunately, we've had every once in a while you get a couple hiccups technically, but nothing out of the ordinary. So I've been very thankful for that.
I wouldn't know what to do, especially cross country. That's tough.
I was a little bit out of my league that day, yes, and that was not exactly in my wheelhouse. And so, but I was glad to help out. The MHSAA, the High School Association here in Mississippi, has been very kind to me, letting me be a voice for all these years. So they were in a pinch, so I said, I'll be happy. I'll be happy to do that. So, that was very memorable.
I'll go on, Stephen.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh, no, I was going back to take it to a local level and taking it back to high school football and the state championships. There's some names that keep popping up. This is your 10th consecutive year. There's some schools that just keep showing up at the state championship game year after year. Who are some names and some coaches that you've really gotten to enjoy seeing and built a relationship with?
Well, I've been very thankful through the years, Heath. I mean, I was born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin, came down here to Tupelo, Mississippi, took a job at the NBC affiliate as being a sports director. And I told my folks I'd be back up in a couple of years. And now it's been 37 years later. You just never know what the Lord's got planned for our lives. But I got the chance to know some great coaches through the years, worked with quite a few there in local television and then doing the play-by-play. Currently, Chris Cutcliffe, it's David Cutcliffe's son, who's the head coach at Oxford High School. They've won 25 in a row. And so they've got it rolling. Chris Chambliss from West Point, they're going for their 5th straight state championship. So it seems like every year I get a chance to call those guys. There's just so many in Mississippi, and that was one thing. Mississippi sometimes takes maybe a little. It doesn't get the highest rankings in the most respect around the country in different categories, and some of it is definitely warranted. But I'm telling you, with high school football, the amount of the kids, I remember looking at a stat a couple years ago, per capita, Mississippi had more players in the NFL than any other state. So you really see, and you start seeing them at a high school level. I remember I had Cam Akers, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, when he had 6 touchdowns in a state championship game that was played at Mississippi State. So you see these guys that are doing well in high school, and then they blossom well in college, and then they go on to the NFL. So that's kind of a neat deal as well.
Well, real quick, now that you're obviously in Mississippi, what do you think about the Egg Bowl this past Saturday?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is maybe one of the first time, I can't remember the last time that they were actually, I was kind of proud to watch it. There was no unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. It was very entertaining. It was relatively clean. Now, obviously, I'm an emotion guy. I love electricity, and there wasn't that electricity, obviously, with COVID and in the stands and all. But I thought it was pretty well played. A lot of scoring. So I'm that kind of guy as well. I can hear the defensive purists out there that enjoy that 6-3 game, but I'm all for a 40-35 game at halftime. So I like a lot of, but like you see, even on the highlights, there were plays defensively and plenty of offense throughout the game.
Well, you got to cover the Egg Bowl for many years. What's a fun story behind the scenes that you remember of calling this great rivalry for either school?
Yeah, there have been a lot of them. Just think of all the different folks, the coaches and the players that I've had the opportunity to interview, and then you start to really get to know them, and then you're so proud of seeing these guys go to the next level and do well. I just think just the emotion. I mean, I remember back in my TV days. Now, Stephen, it's probably the same way in Alabama with sportscasters over there with Alabama Auburn. But I would have people calling after my sportscast was over and like, Will, you had Coach Cutcliffe on 3 more seconds than Coach Sherrill tonight. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? 3 seconds? And I mean, I'm serious. We would get that kind of those phone calls, and I'm thinking, either get on medicine, or if you're not on the medicine, I mean, I don't know. You either got to change the medication or you got to get on something, because if you're thinking about 3 seconds. So the last couple of years I was in doing TV, local sports, I would actually keep track. I had a counter that I would monitor during the week. Okay, if I had a $1:30 story on Ole Miss on Monday and 1:45 on Mississippi State, I would keep track of it. And by the end of the week, I'd throw it up there and it'd all be within a couple seconds of each other. So if they're having a fit over that, but that was the one thing I learned early on. I mean, I think it was my 3rd month here. Someone evidently found out where I was living in my apartment, and I had a hunting knife when I came home after my 10 o'clock sportscast in between the 7 and the 8 on my apartment door. And it had a little tag, a little note on there, and I'll keep it because I know it's a daytime show, so I can't really explain exactly what the verbiage was on it. But it basically said you better keep it even if you want to stay here in this state for very long. So I knew really early that this was a serious rivalry, because up in Wisconsin, Wisconsin, Minnesota, they battled for an axe. I mean, that's kind of a big rivalry in Wisconsin, Iowa. But wow, nothing like I had ever seen before when I came down here to Mississippi. And like I said, Stephen, I know talking to some of the sports casters in Alabama that I got to know through the years, and they say it's pretty brutal over there as well.
You know, it's kind of like, well, you're favoring this team over that team. I mean, it's really crazy, man.
I mean, I would cover a game at Mississippi State, Stephen, and they'd say, well, obviously Ole Miss is off to, that's why you're down here. Or then when I go to Oxford, then what are you doing here? I mean, Mississippi State's at home. And I've had stuff thrown at me at both places too. I mean, yeah, had a Coke, a bottle hit me on the back of the head at the hump for a Mississippi State, Florida game. And I've had during live shots after an Ole Miss football game, had whiskey bottles thrown at me while I'm looking into a camera. So, yeah, I got a lot of stories. I mean, I know you only have a little time left, but we could do a whole segment of the emotion of Mississippi when it comes to these two universities and their fan base, more importantly.
Steven, get the planner out and go on and book Will for Egg Bowl week next week for the Tuesday and Friday show.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, there you go.
What are your thoughts on Mike Leach and that offense at Mississippi State? Because, you know, early in the year, it looked like everybody was saying, whoa, this offense is not going to work in the SEC. But the last 2 weekends, it looks like, well, they're starting to gain a little traction. Do you honestly feel like that this is a system that can work in an SEC defensive-minded league?
Well, you're right, Stephen. They actually have shown a little bit of a heartbeat the last couple of weeks offensively. And that was a big question going in. I mean, would that work? And of course, at the beginning, wow. I mean, everybody was like myself. I mean, are you kidding me? Costello looked like it was like automatic. Just go ahead and turn in your Heisman vote after that first week. And then they had all those hiccups and some issues that came up. I think the verdict is still out. I'm not completely convinced, but if he gets his folks in there that he wants and maybe get some of these receivers, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of solid verbal commits from some of these receivers that want to be a part of that. I'm also seeing some running backs and some of the ones that are decommitting, because it's tough to be unless you want to be that guy out there in the flat and getting that swing pass, because running backs do get a lot of catches and a lot of love passing wise in his offense, but not a whole lot of carries offensively. So I think, I know I went around the block a little bit, Stephen, but I don't know. I just think that I think we probably need a little bit more to see. But he definitely has this Mississippi State offense these last couple of weeks are totally different than what we saw the previous month that we saw after that LSU game.
Now,
go on, Stephen.
Okay. Heath said that your next game is going to be the Coastal Carolina. Have you started researching them a little bit, and what do you think about that team playing Liberty this weekend?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of neat. It was originally scheduled for like so much. The play-by-play schedule this fall has been just, you think you got the game and then it gets postponed or it gets canceled or it gets thrown 3 weeks later. So I had started a little bit on Coastal Carolina earlier. And it's kind of neat. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of hashtags lately, America's team or, America's darlings. I mean, they really have done a nice job. And I had their game a couple years ago. I had a Coastal Carolina Troy matchup, and it was nothing close to what they've been doing. So kudos to the new coach and what he's been able to change that culture pretty quickly. And they are fun to watch. And I think it's going to be wonderful this week with Liberty, another team that's been able to garner a lot of attention nationally, and to have College Game Day. It just speaks volumes on and I think that's kind of neat. I mean, don't we all sometimes cheer for the underdog? I mean, to see some of these guys that don't get the pub that normally, and I think COVID is all the negatives, and oh man, there have been a lot of negatives with this virus, but one of the positives is for the Sun Belt Conference, because they've been able to get a lot of their games in, the majority of their games in, and early on, they were able to really flex their muscle on some opportunities of some primetime slots, TV-wise, that normally they wouldn't have had. I mean, those games would have been on ESPN Plus, or they would have been on ESPN3, but they were on the linear side. And that is huge, that getting that brand out there. And then they were so opportunistic in their games that they took care of some of the big boys on the block.
Yeah. And another fun question for you, Will. Have you been pronouncing the accent or without the accent of pronouncing Chanticleers for
Oh yeah, Chanticleers. Oh yeah, you got Chant. You better put that Chant. If you ever see my charts for play-by-play, I mean, I don't ever spell the name. I'm always phonetically spelling it. So when I look down at my chart, when I'm calling, I know exactly, I've got phonetically, but that's one of the things that I'll have bold letters at the top just to remind me. Because boy, I'll tell you what, you talking about getting a fan base upset. I'm telling you, that's not something that you want, especially with social media. We joked around about what happened back in the days when I was sportscasting at the local TV market. At least that was pre-social media, so people had to call, or they saw me in person. Then they could do a little damage. But fortunately, that was not social media, because it can be nice, it can be complimentary, it can be kind, but other times it can be ruthless.
Well, Will, thank you so much for your time and taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug or give a shout out to?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to join you guys. I know, Heath, we go way back, long time ago. We'd go and eat some groceries at a fine establishment down there in the Golden Triangle, and we would wear that out pretty consistently. And of course, I've worked on several projects with Heath, and so it was nice. And I felt bad that I've had to not be able to make it on a couple times that you invited me. So I'm thankful that I was able to be on the show with you guys today. And in case if anybody wants to follow, I'm on Instagram or on Twitter. I'm Will _Kolemeyer, Koll, as you can see, Meyer. It's been spelled a lot of different ways down here in Dixie, but I saw it one time with a Q in there, and I'm like, a Q? Where's the Q coming in? But yeah, it's good. And I'm thankful to be on with you guys today, and keep up the great work.
All right. Thank you so much.
Hey, Will, I got another fun question for you before you head out. Of all the players that you've covered in the Mississippi High School state championship, other than Cam Akers, what is a name or two that just really wowed you over the last decade? Like, it's like, wow, I got to see this guy play.
Golly, I mean, there have been just so many. I'm trying to think of, nothing really that just comes to mind. I'll tell you what I'll do. No, next time I'll do a little research, so I'll have that down there. But yes, I mean, your Cam Akers. I mean, you go all the way back to Jarius Jackson from Tupelo that played at Notre Dame. I mean, you just think about the Wesley Walls that was from Pontotoc, and then Ole Miss, and then I still remember him calling me when he committed to Ole Miss on a Sunday afternoon at the TV station, and then to cover him in high school and then college and then in the NFL and then post NFL. Those are the things that are really special, because you've been able to, and I've been very blessed with so many opportunities to cover guys that not only were standouts in high school, but then I was able to cover them in college and then in the pro ranks. And so those are always really special. And you get the opportunity for the Rafael Palmeiros, the Will Clarks, the Jeff Brantleys. You just go on and on. It's just been a really, I just, you come down to Mississippi, I come down south, and I'm thinking I'm going to be here for a couple of years. And I'm so thankful that it all worked out, that it was part of God's plan for me to be down here, because it's really been a blessing. I've missed a lot of things with my family up in Wisconsin, but overall it's been a true blessing.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
Sounds good, fellas. Have a good one.
You. All right.
Take care, Will.
You bet.
All right, man. Well, we actually want to thank Will for coming back on the show. It was a great little interview and segment there. But we actually have some breaking news while Will was on.
Oh, wow.
And this is rather interesting. Now, this was first brought up by Adam Rittenberg, who we had on last week, and then Brent McMurphy also retweeted it as well. The Southern Miss head coaching job is about to wrap up pretty quick, and Tulane head coach Will Hall is about to take the Southern Miss job.
Wow. So a little purging happening there in Tulane, huh?
Yes, and actually Will wants to come back on, so let me pull him back up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm cherry picking. I don't come on the last time you invite me, and now I'm just hogging the show.
You're fine, man. You're
fine.
fine.
No, Will Hall, what a great move by Jeremy McClain.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about, Heath was just asking me about the guys that I covered in high school, then college, and then saw them. Will Hall was that kind of guy. I remember his senior year, Amory was playing Shannon. Well, they had such the huge, it was a big rivalry, and there were so many people there that they were going to have to move it to Tupelo High School. So I'm covering the game. I'm in the back of the end zone. So they're at Tupelo High, Amory versus Shannon in the playoffs. Will Hall calls his own number. He goes around, scores the touchdown. He comes running over to the camera. This is a 17-year-old, mind you, Stephen. Keep that in mind. And he comes up to me and he says right into the camera, different venue, same results, Panthers roll. And he had the wherewithal to come and he just scores. It's a playoff game. And he has that, whatever you want to call it, for a 17-year-old, different venue, same results. It's just, he was, so I'm just so happy to hear that. And I know there were quite a few big names that were getting into that shuffle, especially late. So I'm really happy to hear that, that Will Hall, I think he'll do a wonderful job.
Right.
Okay, I'm done for the day. I'm sorry. No more. Kollmeyer's out. I'm out. I'm checking out.
All right, no worries, man. You're good. Thank you.
All right.
Will, thank you, brother.
All right, no problem.
That was awesome. That was a great story.
Oh, Will has got a million great stories.
Yes.
Maybe one slow day during the summer.
Yes.
We'll prepare Will. The greatest thing about Will is the times that we had time to talk to each other. I would just listen to story after story, and I was like, wow, Will has done it all. But there's a local writer here named Al Ainsworth, and he talked so highly of Will, and I cannot remember how paths crossed, but and he brought up he brought up Will Kolemeyer's name. I was like, I know Will, and so we started sharing Will stories, and he's like, Will told me this great story. I was like, well, Will told me this great story, and so Will's he's just full of great stories. So just like that one there, he's got a lot of wow factors. I don't know how Will remembers everything. Mine like a steel trout, brother. But Will's always been fun to bounce things off of. I've bounced a million things off Will before. I've been so grateful to Will for so many things. But again, Hunter Gibson, who might join us on the show and help us one day on this show.
Right.
Hunter talked so highly of Will, and there's been so many people that I've run into over the years, and they'll bring up Will's name, and I was like, obviously they got to be a good person if they know Will. So
Yeah. Well, dude, but what are your thoughts about Will coming back to the state of Mississippi, going to Southern?
Well,
since you are in Mississippi, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, Southern Miss used to run the state, and not just for a little bit, but for a long time.
Right.
Especially those great teams in the 70s and 80s, and even in the early 90s, and even into the 2000s.
Right.
I remember when I was in television going and covering the Southern Miss TCU game. It was going to be the champion of Conference USA, and TCU was playing for a Power 8 seat.
Yeah.
They were there in the final running, and Southern Miss was a one-loss team that night, and they had their way with TCU. And I want to say TCU was ranked in the top 5 at the time, maybe. So it was crazy to see that. That was back during the BCS rankings, and you got to be in the top 8 and this and that, and so. But yeah, it was a crazy time. So Southern Miss is just a tremendous program, and
Right.
I really wish Southern Miss would start backing it financially again.
Yes.
How Jeff Bauer ran that program. I still don't know how Jeff Bauer ran that program years ago, back in the 90s. He did it on a shoestring budget. He was winning at an extremely high level, and he was dominating. And so Southern Miss, I think, got very comfortable with, hey, we don't have to put money in football and we could still win.
Not this day and age.
Yeah, it wasn't that day and age either in the 90s and early
Right.
2000s either. But, he found a way to do it. He did it for such a long and incredible time.
Right.
But, with that being said, you look at Southern Miss and what's happened over the program the past couple of years, and it's really sad. Southern has really taken a beating, and
it seemed like it all started when they hired Ellis Johnson, and my buddy Heath Hinton said that was the worst coaching hire anybody has ever made in the FBS, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think things would have started slipping under the previous coach. I know they were in the running for some big things and
Yes.
bowls and stuff. But
and then Larry Fedora goes to North Carolina, and then everything just started going downhill after that.
yeah, I don't think Larry Fedora would have sustained success at Southern Miss. I don't think he could have. But what he had there, he was definitely running with.
Yes.
But I wouldn't say he built that program. He kind of inherited some good players. He did get some guys in there as well. But I would say that things started slipping slowly with Fedora, and then you had the bad hire with Ellis Johnson, and it just fell off.
Yes.
So it's a sad situation there in Hattiesburg. Brett Bielema's name was being floated around just yesterday about the Southern Miss job. So, and Stephen, I was thinking about this, of all things, brushing my teeth yesterday. I was thinking, I was like schools like Southern Miss and South Carolina, they should go on and make this hire as soon as possible so the new coach can start on recruiting. Because, we've got signing day here, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks from today.
Yes.
Yeah, or is it 2 weeks from tomorrow? Maybe it's 2 weeks tomorrow. Anyway, we're 2 weeks. And it's hard to build a relationship in 2 weeks. But you might could get a kid to delay of not going to another school. It's like, hey, look, if they want you now, they'll want you in February as well. So I always kind of hope that schools like Southern Miss and South Carolina, who are going through the coaching change, make it early. Make it fast. At least get 1 or 2 guys on staff that can start making those phone calls.
Yes.
And making those things happen. But, yeah, a crazy situation coming about. But I really hope Southern Miss takes that step. I hope they get back to not good football, but great football there in Hattiesburg. They've got such a long way to go that it kind of breaks my heart. All programs go up and down. Let's just say that maybe this is the first step of heading back up.
Well, are you ready to run over some of the highlights real quick from this?
Absolutely, I'm ready for highlights.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. Did you realize that there were 2 upsets last Friday?
No.
Oregon got beat.
Right, by the Beavers.
But there was a bigger one that happened on Friday.
Yeah, what's that?
Dude, are you ready?
I'm ready.
The Virginia Cavaliers in college basketball actually lost to a West Coast Conference team. They're in the tournament by a final of 61-60. That was a monumental upset of number 4 Virginia going down. And I don't think anybody really saw this one coming. Now, obviously, Kentucky, over the years, they've had some slip-ups early in the year, with Coach Cal, because you have a lot of turnover with those kind of programs. But I did not see Virginia getting beat this early in the season.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Virginia is the only number 1 seed to ever lose
in
the first round game.
A 16 seed.
Right. So maybe it's just Virginia. I mean, I don't know. I will say this: San Francisco used to be a very prominent program way back when. And if I'm not mistaken, San Francisco has 1 national title in basketball, and I think that was when Wilt Chamberlain, if I'm not mistaken, could be. I think Wilt Chamberlain was on that team for the Dons.
Yes.
DONS, the Dons of the University of San Francisco, the San Francisco Dons. I had to look that up. That's like a Duke or a King or something. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, the Dons of San Francisco. So you don't see any other schools with Dons.
No. But like you said, the 16 seed beating a 1 seed, that was the last time Virginia lost to an unranked opponent, and that was back in 2018. So, yes, we are going to start talking a little bit of college basketball on the show as we move forward into the SEC slate and the rest of college football. And then in the offseason, we're going to talk exclusively about college basketball because, as you know, there's just a little bit of a following down here in the South, and especially with that team in the Bluegrass State.
What? Kentucky plays basketball? When did that start?
Yeah, you mean they play football because that's all they talk about is basketball up there. All right, man. Well, what did you – now, look, I'll just have to go on ahead and tell you, last week on the show, I was very, very boisterous about – the Big 12 is actually going to help Texas, blah, 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 blah. I really feel like that the Big 12 is ready to get rid of Tom Herman because they are not going to do anything at Texas under Tom Herman, and it was really shown last weekend or last Friday when they got beat at home by Iowa State.
Mm-hmm. We all know that looking back, hindsight is always 20/20. Tom Herman agreed to the South Carolina job.
Yes.
And he was going there, signed, sealed, delivered. It was all good. Then South Carolina lost to the Citadel.
Yes.
And Tom Herman changed his mind, saying, I don't want to come to South Carolina. That's too big of a rebuilding job. I'm not coming. And then Texas knocked on his door. And so he took this Texas job, and he was off and running. But if he would have taken that South Carolina job, I got a great feeling he is still coaching today. I think South Carolina is in a little bit better position. I think he still has a head coaching job. Sorry too much for Tom Herman. I mean, one of the greatest things about being a college football coach is being fired. I know that's crazy to say, but that's a great day for the family financially. They cut you a nice fat check. Some guys have to get a check within 24 hours. Some guys get paid, and I know Sumlin, I think his was getting paid in 21 days or 30 days or something like that. I remember Sumlin got fired and got $7-8 million, and then 2 or 3 days later signed on with Arizona.
Yes.
So that was a great week for the Sumlins, the golden parachute. But yeah, with that being said, Texas, they're back on the market. I know the name Urban Meyer has been thrown around tremendously for that job.
Yes.
Pump the brakes, Texas. Urban Meyer might be the new John Gruden. I mean, I think that John Gruden's name got floated to every NFL, college, high school, indoor football team, you name it, arena football. His name got floated to every single job. And I used to laugh at Tennessee fans. Yes, Tennessee fans, I laughed at you about John Gruden. John Gruden was never coming to Tennessee. He never considered it. Yes, right. I know that his wife was a cheerleader there. Yes, I know that he's helped out at camps. He was never coming.
Right.
So, with that being said, I think Urban Meyer does get back in college football. I was kind of shocked that an NFL team has not knocked on Urban's door yet.
Right.
And maybe they have, and we just don't know it. But pump the brakes on Urban Meyer. I will not be shocked if Urban Meyer goes to Texas. But I'm not going to be shocked if Urban Meyer puts his name to every single job that opens up here in the next 2 or 3 years either.
By the way, Iowa State has now beaten Texas in back-to-back years for the first time since 2002.
That's not too far back.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say like 1938 or something.
Yes. Now, look, I want to be really, really critical of someone here right now. Okay, right here, this is a crucial time, and Sam Ehlinger takes a sack. Dude, here's the deal. If that was a freshman, okay, you can understand it. This guy was playing his final home game of his career at Texas. He has to know he cannot take a sack there, because let me tell you something. He doesn't take a sack there. Dicker, the kicker, hits that field goal, and Texas wins that game, or ties the game at least.
Yeah, I'm never going to be critical of players or coaches unless they do something stupid off the field. But I agree with you, Stephen. He has to know, and I'm sure he does know. Why he did it, I don't know. I mean, everyone makes mistakes. Lord knows I make plenty of them by the hour. But
we all do, man. But I mean, him being a senior playing his last home game at Texas, you've got to know. Come on, man, get rid of the football. I mean, I'm just like, I was watching that and I was like, Sam, come on, man.
Yeah.
And how bad is it that as bad as a career as he's had at Texas, because, they've been up and down, and are they back or they're not back? At least try to go out a winner on your last senior day. And I'm just like, come on, man, don't cost your football team.
It's always tough to lose on senior day.
Right.
That is tough. The kid made a mistake. Yeah, he's a young man. It happens. Everybody wants to be critical of it. It's a tough gig. This is how I look at it. If I personally think I could do better, I would criticize it. But Sam's a far better athlete than I ever dreamed about being. So I'm not going to be too critical on him. Stephen, I'll say this real quick. There was a guy on Facebook on Sunday night that tagged me in a message on a SEC page. And he was talking about how Vanderbilt's just complete trash, and no one wants that job, and this and that. And, I looked at the guy's profile, and I want to say the guy was like 24 years old, and he was working for the city. And I'm just kind of like, buddy, I don't know what you're making, but I got a great feeling it's less than $3 million a year.
Right.
So you could call them trash all you want to, but you've got to be successful, highly successful, to even be considered for a trash job, which I don't think Vanderbilt's a trash job. Mason had success at Vanderbilt at the beginning. He did.
Yes.
James Franklin had success at Vanderbilt. He did. you can have success at Vanderbilt. It's not unheard of now. Bobby Johnson, he broke that streak, and ever since it's been broken, they have had some success up there. So
Right.
I really hope Vanderbilt gets a great coach.
Well, were you able to watch any of the Notre Dame game over North Carolina? Now, this game was back and forth, and obviously you can see right here Ian Book making Johnny Manziel-esque plays. Dude, he had a great game. Let me just tell you, Ian Book, since he's been the starter at Notre Dame, is currently 29-3, and 2 of his 3 losses. One of them was against Clemson in his first start when they had the beatdown in the 14 playoff, and the other one was on the road at Georgia last year. And I think the third one was the Georgia game when they lost in South Bend. But obviously, Ian Book is a great quarterback. He led them to the win over Clemson a couple of weeks ago. And I'm interested to see if this Notre Dame team is for real when they take on Clemson again, because obviously Trevor Lawrence will be there, and this Notre Dame team could be for real and not the Notre Dame of yesterday or the day before.
I'm a big fan of the craziness that 2020 has brought us. I'm a big fan of these crazy streaks that have popped up. They're having like University of San Francisco beat Virginia.
Yes.
Like Richmond beating Kentucky. Just the craziness that has been given us sport. Like the Denver Broncos playing a game without a quarterback together. I mean, I'm actually enjoying 2020 and the craziness that it brings. Put me in for Notre Dame on that.
Right.
Notre Dame joined a conference. Are you kidding me? And they might just win it.
Yes.
I've never been a Notre Dame fan. I've never disliked Notre Dame, but I've never been like, oh, yeah, it's Notre Dame, So I've never really pulled for or against Notre Dame. I love the movie Rudy. I can tell you that. But I am all for Notre Dame this year, just winning the ACC, just because I think it'll be a wonderful trivia question one day. I think it'll be a blast to see Notre Dame win the league. And I'll say this, the perfect bulletin board material for the Fighting Irish is everybody in the country is saying, well, they beat Clemson and Clemson didn't have their quarterback. It was the backup. It was the backup. It was the backup. I think that is going to motivate Notre Dame, and I think they will play well over their head in that game. Will they win it? I don't know. But I can't wait to watch Notre Dame and Clemson go at it one more time.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. We talked about that this was, a trip-up game last week in North Carolina, and Matt Brown has been known to upset some people. But, this North Carolina team just does not look as good as the previous ones that Matt Brown has had. Their defense is giving up way too many chunk plays and way, way, way too many points and yards this year.
Yeah, and excuse me, I had a yawn coming there. I had to fight it off. Yeah. Mac Brown, he hasn't got his system completely set yet there in Chapel Hill. Mac Brown's going to build a top 25 team.
Yes.
Again. It's crazy to say he did it in the mid-90s. He's going to do it again there in Chapel Hill. So good for Mac Brown, good for the Tar Heels, good for college football in the ACC. We need things like this.
Right.
Look out for Mac Brown and the Tar Heels in the years to come. It's crazy that they went and recycled an old coach who has been out of the game that no one went out to try to hire. And here he is making it happen. And people had said, oh, it's passed him by. His day is gone. And here he is making it happen in the ACC. So good for Mac Brown.
Well, are you ready to talk about the other monumental upset that happened this past Friday on Black Friday in the Pac-12? And this one actually squashed any hope of getting a Pac-12 team in the 14 playoff, I believe. Do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's done. The Pac is done, as always.
Now, did you actually watch this game?
I watched just several plays. We were at family. We had already left for family I was at my
Right.
in-laws' house. Kids were watching movies and TV, so I was just picking here and there at my phone and pulling up things on my phone time to time. I'm a huge fan of, like I said, 2020 and these upsets. What I'm not a huge fan of, both of those uniforms.
Yes.
How awful are those? Is everybody in the state of Oregon colorblind?
I have no clue.
What is going on there? Anyway, no, I like that. Oregon State has been the whipping post for Oregon for so long. And this game known as Civil War, if you're a college football fan, you love it. Back, early 2000s, Oregon State had a tremendous team. Oregon was just now starting to become Oregon. And, there were some great games. And usually, if I'm not mistaken, Oregon State was getting the better of Oregon back then for a couple of years there during Civil War. But, man, what a huge win for the Beavers in that one. Massive win for the Beavers.
Hey.
And, Stephen, fun fact for you, the movie Animal House filmed on the campus of?
Oregon State.
Nope, University of Oregon. You were close. You were close, brother.
Dude,
you had 50-50 on that.
What now?
That was 50-50, right?
Hey, here's a politically correct thing. A couple of the players for both schools this past summer got together and dropped the name the Civil War for this game, and they actually talked about it on the game. I did not know that. So this game right here is no longer called the Civil War.
What's it called?
The game.
Hey, I see Ray out in Las Vegas chiming in. Ray, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, man, he's doing. He and I have been texting back and forth quite often, and I tell you what, he actually sent me a UNLV polo that I'm actually going to start wearing. Now today I couldn't wear it because it is about 45 degrees here in Tuscaloosa, so it's a little bit cold. But as soon as it warms back up, I will be supporting the UNLV Running Rebels.
Yeah, Ray, I'll tell you a quick fun story. I bought a hat back during the Stacey Augmon days of Tark the Shark and all those guys. But, yeah, I've got a UNLV cap that I still – I don't know where it is, but I wore that thing out for about 3 decades. I still got it somewhere.
Right. Well, dude, let's go on ahead and move to Saturday's matchups. And like I said, one more time, I personally feel like that now that the Pac-12 lost, because that was their highest rated football team, the highest ranked football team, I should say, and Oregon getting beat, I could honestly see it being 2 ACC teams versus 2 SEC teams in the 14 playoff because Northwestern got beat. And Ohio State. They had another game canceled, and they may not make the requirements to go to the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, they'll make up like a flag football game in the parking lot somewhere. They'll get that game in, Stephen. They'll find a way. Ohio State, too talented.
Like I said, yeah, but I don't know how the committee is going to look at them and go, okay, well, Alabama's played, or Florida or A&M's played X amount of games, but you guys had 2 games canceled. So how do you stack those up?
Yeah, someone will volunteer to play those guys. I would love, speaking of volunteering and playing, Mike Leach was really putting the name out there and balloting to try to get Mississippi State another game for this weekend. He was doing that during the press conference after the Egg Bowl the other day.
Right.
He was begging for a game, asked for South Carolina. So it was
this weekend, so that's out.
Yeah, so they were trying every and any avenue. It got shot down. Expect Ohio State to go down that same road, but have more success.
Right.
Because there's too much money for the Little 10.
Right.
And definitely for Ohio State to make it that.
And I will say this too, the Big Ten, Nebraska tried that and they got voted down by the Big Ten. Well, this past weekend, USC versus Colorado, was canceled on Friday simply because of COVID issues right there at USC. So what did Colorado do? They went out of conference and played Brady Hoke's new team, San Diego State, on Saturday.
Yeah.
Which actually that turned into a really good football game too.
Well, the great thing about these makeshift football games, these makeup games that they pull up, if you schedule a game for Monday, you're just now getting tape and reviewing it. And so Tuesday, you can't really implement too much,
right.
So you've kind of got to run a base offense and a base defense against both these schools. And so you're kind of coaching on the fly. I think that is tremendous. It shows you how smart your coaches are. It definitely tests the depth of your football team. So yeah, for teams that coaches are great schemers and come up with things, they're at a disadvantage in this kind of situation. But coaches that really know how to do things, take for example Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen can scheme with the best of them. He's a great play caller, but if he has to run a base offense, Dan could be in trouble. So with that being said, we've got to look at these great makeshift football games because you're not really seeing a team fully prepared to take on what they've signed on to take on. So it's been fun. Again, 2020 has been miserable for all of us. It's been a huge pain in the butt. We all know it. But we got some craziness. Like we said, these makeshift football games, Notre Dame joining the conference, these crazy upsets.
Right.
No one's playing defense in 2020, which I didn't see coming. I would have, if you had told me before the season, I'm like, defenses are going to have their way. Offenses aren't going to be clicking yet, this and that. Defenses are going to,
It flip-flopped.
Yeah, and it was the exact opposite. So it's been fun seeing all this craziness. So with that, I think we've gotten this very special year of college football. I mean, Coastal Carolina and Liberty. I mean, when we started this show, who would have thought this would be like the Liberty, happy hour? I mean, all the Liberty fans showed up here until Liberty lost. I'm sorry, Liberty.
Yes.
But it's been crazy.
Speaking of crazy and having a bad year, you know me, man. I got to do it.
Bring it on, brother.
How?
Mr. Khaki Pants.
How is Michigan fans? How are they still happy with Jim Harbaugh after losing by double digits to a 5-loss program?
I can tell you the answer to this one. It was very easy for Michigan fans. You know why? Because they're not watching. They're not paying attention.
Right.
They've given up on the team. They don't even want to see it. They don't even want to watch it or nothing. This is sad. We mentioned earlier about Southern Miss. Same with Michigan. Teams go up and down. Programs rise and fall, and they're constantly moving. I have no idea what's going on at Michigan.
Right.
Jim Harbaugh is a phenomenal coach. He really is. NFL teams beg him to come back to the NFL every year, but maybe Steven, 2020 is the exact same thing for what we just talked about with Harbaugh. Maybe he's a coach that likes to build his team slowly. He didn't get a chance to build them in the spring. He didn't get a chance to build them during the summer. They had this makeshift fall camp and this makeshift season that the Big Ten did because they weren't going to play football. They were going to be the leaders, and we're not going to play, and thought everyone would fall in line, and no one did.
Yeah.
So I really think that had a lot to do with it. Are other teams winning? Yeah, but I think that has something to do with, Mr. Khaki Pants there, because Mr. Khaki Pants likes things a certain way. I mean, he likes milk with a steak. I know everyone's seen that picture. He likes things a certain way, and he wasn't able to do it. He is completely out of his element this year. And so I really hope that he comes back next year. I hope Michigan has a phenomenal season, a bounce-back season. But, I mean, look at Northwestern last year. Northwestern won 3 ball games, and they were undefeated until this past weekend. And but this is just, again, 2020 and the craziness. Who would have picked Michigan to be, what are they, 0-5 now, 0-6?
No, they've won 2 games. 2-4.
Yes. Yeah, it was Penn State that I hadn't won. Yeah, I got my records backwards there. Yeah. So 2-4 Michigan, man. 2-4 Michigan.
Now, if you did not see the score of the Michigan game, and I just threw this stat at you, Michigan was 4 of 12 on third down, despite the average distance of being 3.8 yards to go for a first down. Man, that you're not going to win very many games with that.
Man, that's an ugly stat. That's an ugly stat. That's ugly.
Gosh.
UGLY, you ain't got no alibi.
Yes. All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the game that made national and international headlines this past weekend. What did you think about Missouri and Vandy? And more importantly, what did you think about Vandy trotting out the first female kicker in the Power 5 school, at a Power 5 school, to actually kick off?
Yeah, I don't know what the stat is on this, Stephen. I know Colorado had a female kicker a couple of years back. I know Duke had one. Tony Barnhart was talking about it. But I don't think they ever played another Power 5 team. So she wasn't the first Power 5 football player, but she was the first one to play in a Power 5 team. I'll say this. I think she had not practiced kicking off with someone holding the ball on a windy day. I think that threw her off a little bit. I think she's a better kicker than what we saw there. And when we were just started the show, my phone kind of hit some highlights, some notifications that it looks like she's going to be kicking this weekend.
Yeah, so, for Georgia. For Vandy versus Georgia.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun to see this. Again, 2020 gives us something fun.
Yes.
Not everything in 2020 has been bad. We've gotten some great upsets. We've gotten some fun things. We got some wacky things. And now we've got historical things. So props to Sarah. My wife doesn't watch football. She doesn't care all that much about it. But, I've got 2 daughters, 4 of my kids, 2 are girls. And so, it was fun to, I told my daughter, I was like, hey, you want to watch this game with me? She's like, no, not really. And then I was like, well, Vandy's got a girl kicker. She's going to play today. And she goes, let me know when she plays. I'm like, all right. And then my wife, who was getting ready, peeks her head out. She goes, let me know too. So it was fun to do that.
Well, I've got something a little controversial to say about this. So here we go. And I apologize to anybody if I offend anybody. But Sarah was getting a lot of negative comments about these, women belong in the kitchen. And her kick was horrible. Well, I just have one thing to say to all of those people. Actually, I don't have anything to say to them per se, but I do have something I would like to say. The majority of those people that were, cussing her and were saying those things are probably, if you look at their profiles, the Corona bros who are still pissed off that we got football anyway. Would you not agree?
I don't know.
Come on, man. Everybody who was a college football fan is excited and happy that we broke the barrier, and it looks like that all the trash talking negative people, those are probably the ones that didn't want us to have football. Football's going to be bad this year to begin with.
Yeah, I'll say this, Stephen. Maybe I'm getting a little crotchety in my 40s. I don't know if it starts then or if you're just bored with it. But, these haters, I just ignore them anyway.
Yes.
People want to put you in a box. People want to hate on you. Social media, I call them keyboard cowboys.
Yes.
You're worthless human beings. You're big and brave on a keyboard. You wouldn't dare have the courage to say it to someone's face. And if you did, you're going to get smacked in the mouth by somebody, maybe with a brick. I don't know. Depending on who you say and what you say to who it wins.
Right.
people just need to chill out and respect one another.
Right.
People that want to hate on Sarah or tell her to go make me a sandwich or whatever else they want to say, if you want to be funny, okay, but keep it respectable.
Yes.
This is a great day for college football. This is a great day for 2020.
Yes.
Can we not celebrate something together?
I mean, look at that. I mean, look how excited your little girl and your wife were that a female kicker was actually going to kick in a male-dominated sport. So, yeah. I mean, come on, people. I mean, seriously.
And I'll say this. I have not seen the TV ratings for the Vanderbilt game. They had to be high. They had to be high. Are higher than expected. They were definitely higher than expected, and I hadn't even looked at them.
Right.
But I would say if she's going to kick again this weekend, they will be higher than expected again. And I'll get to say this. I will probably tell my daughter and my wife again, hey, you want to watch the Vandy game with me? Sarah's going to play again. So it's going to be a fun time, It's amazing.
And hopefully she'll actually get to attempt a field goal this week. That would be awesome.
Now, Stephen, let's talk about something evil for a second. Let's just pretend that it's a driving rainstorm, a snowstorm, something. Half the team gets corona for Georgia, whatever it is. And this turns out to be a close game, a nip and tuck kind of game. And Sarah comes in and kicks the go-ahead or the game-winning field goal as time expires.
Yes.
Georgia fans will lose. They will lose all hope in life.
Yes.
I don't think we'd have to worry about the election happening in Georgia because all Georgia fans will just, they'll start destroying themselves.
Yeah.
If they'll destroy their own property, they'll destroy themselves. They will destroy each other. If they lost to Vanderbilt and Sarah kicking the game-winning field goal, I bet that would be an internet joke that would go on forever.
Yeah.
And what a happy moment it would be for a lot of people. Yeah, it would be miserable for Georgia fans. It would be miserable for Georgia fans. But again, it's 2020.
Honestly, I was kind of at the end of that game. I was kind of a little upset with Drinkowitz and Missouri that they didn't actually give Vandy the opportunity to score 3 to let her at least attempt it. I know that a shutout is great and big, but when you have a monumental thing like this, I felt like that Missouri should have at least let her attempt at least one field goal.
Stephen, I'm going to correct you there. I disagree.
Okay.
And this is what I'll say. It is not Drinkowitz's responsibility to get Vanderbilt in field goal position.
Right.
It is Vandy's responsibility to get Vanderbilt in field goal position. I stole that line from Lou Holtz in his book, Winning Every Day, best book I've ever read. Highly suggest that book. Phenomenal book. But he talked about when he was playing West Virginia, and Lou's from West Virginia, and he was coming back, and he got 80-something tickets to the game, and Bobby Bowden's coaching the Mountaineers, and Bobby Bowden skull-dragged Lou Holtz's team that day up and down the field and beat them 60-whatever to nothing, 50-whatever it was to nothing. And so Lou went out to shake hands. He was mad at Bobby because Bobby kept scoring points in the fourth quarter. And so Lou went to midfield to shake his hand after the game, and he's like, Bobby, I thought we were friends. And he said, why'd you run the score up on me? And Bobby Bowden took his 2 fingers and poked Lou in the chest and said, Lou, it's not my job to keep my team out of the end zone. And so I thought that was the greatest story. But that's a true story, and it's true in life.
Right.
It's definitely true in college football. This world's not going to give you anything.
Right.
College football is not going to give you anything. You've got to earn it.
Yes.
And so with that being said, I wish the absolute best. I will say this about Vanderbilt. That team looked so dead, and they quit during that game, and that broke my heart. And I think that's why Derek Mason got fired. It's because they didn't look prepared, and they gave up. And they gave up early in that game. And so to see when teams start going through the motions so early in a ball game, Vanderbilt, please play with some heart. You could, hey, especially the guys that are actually playing on the field. hey, if Sarah makes a field goal, I mean, that clip will be played a million times. You'll be in a Nike commercial or some other commercial for years to come. That clip will
Yes.
live on forever. There's going to be 11 guys for Vanderbilt, or excuse me, 10 men and one woman. That clip could live forever. And
Yes.
so it'll be interesting to see if they get that opportunity to showcase that, because every time it'll come up, it's like, hey, that's your dad right there. Hey, that's your dad right there. And there'll be someone that says, hey, there's your mom.
Yes. All right, man. Well, are you ready to go to another big game? And we actually talked with Cecil Hurt about this one a little bit. It was the annual Iron Bowl. And, man, I got to tell you, Alabama started off a little bit sluggish, but then they turned it on really good there with Devontae Smith, Jones to Devontae Smith. And actually, Auburn, they kind of hung around a little bit, but man, coming up here in just a minute, and Gary Danielson on the call said this so exactly right. To beat Alabama on the road, you have to make those kind of catches, man. Now, this cat right here makes unbelievable catches, but he has one dropped right in the breadbasket and cannot pull it in. I feel like that one right there completely turned the, just completely gave Auburn. I mean, just all hope was lost after that. And Alabama, upon that point, just boat raced them by a final of 42-13. Now, Heath, real quick, let me pull this up and let me tell you this stat. Gus Malzahn in Auburn has now been outscored 179 to 90 points in Tuscaloosa since 2013. Now, the closest game in that series was a 55-44 game. I think it was 2017.
Gus has never won in Tuscaloosa, has he? I should know that, but I don't.
Never won in Athens, Baton Rouge, or Tuscaloosa. But
Yes.
They keep him around.
Well, how many people do you know? Let's count all the coaches that's beaten Alabama 3 times. Or let me rephrase that, beat Alabama and Nick Saban 3 times. I can name one. I think Urban Meyer only beat him twice.
What now?
I think Urban Meyer only beat Alabama twice. So,
and our good friend of the show beat him twice. Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze did it twice.
Wait a minute. Did Bob Stoops? Because I know Bob had a winning record against Saban.
Maybe. So we've got how many people on this planet? 3 people, maybe? No, 2 people on this planet.
Right.
2 people on the entire planet Earth has beaten Nick Saban more than twice, 3 times or more.
Yeah.
2 people on the entire planet. So, yes, there is a reason to keep Gus Malzahn around at Auburn. I always thought coming into this season that Auburn was not going to be a good football team.
Right.
And I asked several people on the show. I asked Cole Kubrick this question. I asked Tony Barnhart the question. I've asked a lot of people this question. Is Gus safe this year? And, the half dozen to a dozen times I've asked that question, everyone kept saying, yeah. And I was like, if he loses the Iron Bowl really bad, which I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, what if that team quits on him? And let me pull up the schedule real quick.
They have A&M, Mississippi State.
Yeah, you got Auburn. You got Auburn and A&M this weekend. So
and then Mississippi State. And then I think there's one. Oh, no. I'm sorry. It was Alabama. They lost. Then it's A&M and Mississippi State in the year.
Yeah. So let's just say A&M has their way with them as well. And this team kind of folds. And, I'm not putting any stock in this, but Mike Leach and that offense have been improving. That defense has been running on low numbers due to COVID. So what if Mississippi State comes out and they get to pass for 600 yards or have 600 yards of total offense, I should say. And although they can pass for 600 yards, we've seen it already this season on Mississippi State. But let's say they come out with 600 total yards, the defense looks good, and they upset, Auburn. And I remember asking Cole Kubrick this on the show the other night, last week. What if this happens, and what if Auburn loses out? Is Gus safe? And he's like, yeah, he is. Like, I don't think Gus is safe. I could be 100% wrong. And hey, we might even have to worry about it. They might win both games here on out. They might split. I don't know. But the sirens are starting to go off there on the plains. And the loveliest village is starting to turn a little red with anger. And they don't want blood in the streets yet, but they're getting close to it.
Well, man, let's go on ahead and talk about our final game of the day, and we will also talk about the other games as well when we join you on Friday's show. We will pick up with the games that we did not talk about today because we are dragging out. But I do want to get Heath's take on this game before we go. And we actually talked with Will a little bit about it. But Heath, I'm going to pull you up full screen and give you the floor to talk about this.
Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels made more plays on Saturday than Mississippi State. They had less turnovers. They made key plays when they needed to. And, yeah, if that game goes on a little bit longer, I think we might have a different outcome. But guess what? It didn't go any longer. There's no excuses to be made. Ole Miss won fair and square. They made more plays. They had less turnovers. And they made things happen. And I will say this about Lane's offense. The Kiffin offense there at Ole Miss, clearly when they needed a score or an answer to a Mississippi State score, they got it. When Mississippi State looked like they were fixing to make some noise there in the fourth quarter, Ole Miss had to have a score, and they did it. I will say this. I know Lane Kiffin's going with the analytics. I kind of like analytics in football. I'm not always with them in baseball, and I don't know if I'll be with them always in football. But, going forward on fourth down in situations, yes, the numbers say go for it. But when you got a clear field goal and you have faith in your field goal kicker and he's above average,
kick it.
Take the points, especially in a rivalry game. This could have easily been more than a two-score game, and it was not. So that almost burned Kiffin. If you're a little questionable of kicking a 38-yard field goal or a 44-yard field goal, okay, let's go for it on fourth down. Completely get that. Hey, my kicker has been a little inconsistent in practice this week. All right, we're going to go for it on 4th and 6 inside the 30. Okay, I'm down with that too. Hey, our kicker is out with COVID, and it's a 4th and 7 situation on the 15-yard line. All right, let's run a play. I get that. But when you've got a healthy kicker and you have confidence in him, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. We know that the Egg Bowl, we have seen so many stupid moments. Point to last year. We've seen some crazy moments, the 83 game, the 99 game. We have seen crazy things happen all the time in this game, and that's what makes this rivalry so great. Don't be stupid. Please don't be stupid. Kick the field goal next time.
You may want to shield your eyes and hold your ears because I'm about to read this. The Egg is back in Oxford for the first time since 2017. That broke a 2-year streak by Mississippi State having the Egg.
Yeah, Ole Miss clearly deserved it. They won it fair and square. They won it outright.
Yes.
Massive props to all family, friends, players, coaches, alums, boosters, illegal and legal. They won. I love what Jackie Sherrill used to say. My coffee cup says this, your coffee cup says that. Well, my coffee cup gets to talk louder for the next 365 days.
Yes.
And so and that's what happened. The Ole Miss coffee cups win this one.
Well, dude, man, I got to tell you, and there were times where I thought this was when they went up 14-0. I was like, this is going to be a blowout city. And one of our friends, John Packer, texted me when it went up 14-0 and said, yep, blowout. And then Mississippi State came all the way back and tied it up. And actually, I believe they had the lead at halftime. And then it was all, but that was all she wrote. Now, this upcoming right here in the highlights, this was a huge play in the game because, Mississippi State was driving there at midfield, and then they have the disaster there where Will Rogers could not hold the snap there. That sucks for Mississippi State. And then, of course, this one, I'm not a fan of the actual line pushing you into the end zone. I think that is a complete unfair advantage right there.
I think it's football, brother. I think it's a complete fair advantage. Well, that used to be a rule. It got changed a couple of years ago, I know, when Southern Cal beat Notre Dame and the Bush push with Matt Leinart. A lot of people complained about that. I'm a fan of that. Football, 11 on 11. And if whatever you can do to get in the end zone, I'm for it. Yeah, I don't have a single problem with that one whatsoever. I'm actually a fan of it. But, look at Ole Miss defense. I know I mentioned this earlier in the show. It was a shocker to hear that the Ole Miss defense, that was their best performance of the year. So many of their fans said that. I heard it on the radio call. Ole Miss said it after the game. They were so happy that the defense stepped up. And, of course, the defense wasn't shutting folks down, but it made super big, huge, humongous, massive key stops when they needed them. And that was the important thing about that defense. So, for State fans and the naysayers and anybody else who thought, this is going to be a blowout, the negative Nancy's, they're the apologetic fans like, we shouldn't have won this game because of this. We shouldn't have beat LSU because of this. That's so old with Mississippi State and their fan base, and it needs to be held accountable by other state fans and not allow that craziness, the apologetic of, we're poor on Mississippi State. Mississippi State is not a poor school. It's one of the richest schools in college football thanks to the SEC network and that ESPN money. We are not a poor school. We're nowhere close to a poor school. And I believe you can show that with your baseball stadium and the money that you spend towards women's basketball. A lot of schools choose not to do that. Alabama doesn't put money toward women's basketball. They don't even put money toward men's basketball. Alabama stopped putting money towards baseball. But they got a wonderful softball program. They got a wonderful golf program. And let me check. How's Alabama doing in football?
And gymnastics. Don't forget about that.
Oh, yeah. You can't forget gymnastics.
That's right. Well, man, is there anything else that you would like to say to our viewers before we let them go?
Stephen, after football season, maybe we should turn this into the gymnastics show.
Boo!
There's like tens of people that would be dying to watch it, man. No?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. All right, guys. Well, we have an interesting little announcement to make to you. Over this past weekend, I actually created a Daily Motion account. And what we're going to start doing is any interview that we have on the Stingray Show, 2 to 3 hours after the show, those interviews will be posted right there on the Daily Motion. So if you missed any of the interviews or any of our previous interviews, you can go back and watch them. And today we had on Will, how do you pronounce
Will Kolemeyer.
Kollmeyer. Okay. Will Kolemeyer.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And Cecil Hurt of the Tuscaloosa News. So if you missed either one of those in about 2 to 3 hours, those interviews will be uploaded on our Daily Motion page.
Huge thanks to Cecil Hurt and all the great work that he's done with the Tuscaloosa News. Also, a huge thank you to Will Kolemeyer. I did not know Will had called over 1,700 games doing play-by-play. So I look forward, and he's going to be calling the Mississippi High School Championships this week. And
yes,
we'll be on the call for the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina as they go with their dream season so far. So very special thanks to all of our guests today. Stephen, as always, a special thanks to you. Hey, we had news break today So that was awesome as we
Yeah.
found out who the next head coach is going to be down in Hattiesburg, the hub city.
Yes. And by the way, should we tell the people who were going to lock down or potentially lock down for Friday's show?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Well, we're going to have three guests on our show for Friday. One is going to be ESPN analyst Tom Luganville. Will be stopping by the Stingray Show to talk to us and give us his thoughts on the season so far. Then, with it being Alabama LSU week, we're going to have the former LSU Tiger Jacob Hester on the Stingray Show. And finally, last but not least, Mr. Timmy B, Tim Brando, will be stopping by the Stingray Show to give us his thoughts on all things college football and his career.
So I look forward to talking to all three of those. So many questions being lined up already. I'm getting my notes together for those shows. So please tune in to the Stingray Show later this week. If you missed the interview, you can always come back here to the page and to the show. And once again, on the Facebook page, we'll share it. And also you can catch it on YouTube and our newest platform, which is
Daily Motion. All right, guys. Well, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you next time on the Friday edition of the Stingray Show at 1 o'clock Central Friday. Until then, have a great week. And as always, God bless.
The Dogs and Stingray are coming for you! This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good afternoon, Mr. Feinbaum. Stingray here, and I'm about to shoot the bull with you like all the Auburn students do down at Auburn. Worst defense ever! So without further ado, here is the biggest. Alabama going for the field goal. The kick is up. It is away. It is no good. Chris Davis bringing it out of the end zone. Oh, he's got blockers. Chris Davis up the sideline. Here he goes. Here we go, guys. Dobbs back to pass. Launching the ball. Jared, he's got it.